Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavatasya. एक मिनट, I'll be right back. Bhagavatyuttam Shloke. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 30, text number, text number 19. So Lord Kapil Dev is further describing Yam Duto Tada Prapto Bhima Sarab Sekshanam Sadrishtva Trasta Hridaya Shakran Mutram Vimanchati. At death, he sees the messengers of Lord of Death come before him, their eyes full of wrath, and in great fear he passes stool and urine. So Lord Kapil Dev is describing the death of a conditioned soul. So at the old age what happened, and at the time of death. There are two kinds of transmigration of a living entity after passing away from the present body. One kind of transmigration is to go to the controller of sinful activities, who's known as Yamraj. And the other is to go to the higher planets up to Vaikuntha. Here Lord Kapila describes how persons engaged in activities of sense gratification to maintain a family are treated by the messengers of Yamraj, called Yamadutas. At the time of death, the Yamdutas become the custodians of those persons who have strongly gratified their senses. They take charge of the dying man and take him to the planet where Yamraj resides. The conditions there are described in the following verses. Wow. So the Yamdutas, as we discussed, Yamdutas come for a person who's very sinful. And how they take him away, that is described in the following verses. and if the person is pious, then Devdutas come, and if the person is a devotee, then Vishnudutas come. But when the Yamdutas come, especially, it will be again described in detail in the story of Ajamin. So the Yamdutas, their eyes full of wrath, means they're so angry at the person, that how in the world you committed so many sinful activities. And in great fear he passes stool and urine, because the soul, of course, the gross material eyes cannot see those Yamdutas. They come in a subtle form. Because if they come in a gross form, then everybody in the household will die looking at them. So they come, they have the subtle body, so they come in that. But the soul or the subtle body of the simple person who's about to die, he can see them. And actually, this is this is an observation of nurses. At least in one of the hospitals in America. So, because they don't understand who the Yamdutas are, who are the messengers of death. So they were telling their experience that because normally people here, they have committed lots of sinful activities, especially eating meat and the drinking alcohol. So when the Yamdutas come, these patients, they just look at them and then they cry. They say, don't come near me, go away. don't bind me. And the nurses, they don't understand what is happening. How come this person is looking up in the sky or in the ceiling of the room, and he's saying all these things. So they have given it a term. I'm forgetting that term. It's like they know it's a time for them to leave. This is the time for death. Because they have so many experiences, people do that just before dying. So at this time, what they do, they generally give the injection to the patient. So he goes in sleep and he passes away in that sleep only. So they think they're protecting the patient from suffering. Physically, they might be, but the soul is still suffering. And here it is said, and in great fear he passes stool and urine. So it's another indication. If we want to know if the person who just died, was he a sinful person or was he a pious person or was he a devotee? If he is sinful, no matter how big a person he was, no matter how much he showed he was pious or devoted, if he passes stool and urine at the time of death, means the Yamdutas had come to take him away, means he was a sinful person. Of course, this doesn't mean that next day we're going to post it on the Facebook or WhatsApp or look at this, how sinful he was. No. It's just for our understanding. And if a person was pious and Devdutas came, I mean, of course, Devdutas are not harsh, and they're going to take him away with nicely, peacefully. So the person would be he will not pass stool and urine because he won't be scared, and there will be peacefulness on his face. And if the Vishnu Dutas had come to take him away, if he's a devotee of high caliber, then his bodily glow will not fade away. Otherwise, the bodily glow goes away right away. In fact, that I had seen in one of the cases of my grandfather. I was there in the hospital with him, and he passed away in front of me. And bodily glow just went away, just like that. That time I was in the engineering college. I didn't really understand what is happening. Now, I know he was dying, but the rest, all this philosophy I understood from Prabhupada's books later on. But I could see the body just stopped glowing. It's just dead. I mean, and it just like a bulb is out. But in case of devotees, the body remains soft and the glow also remains. So that is a proof that he was a devotee. So even in the case of a devotee who's not full-fledged devotee, means he hasn't finished his devotion service, the training here yet, so he has to take birth again. Still, the body will remain soft and the glow will be there. That's an indication that he was a devotee. Text 20. Yatna dehe avritya pashar bandha gale balat naito dirgam dhvanam dandayam rajbhata yatha. As a criminal is arrested for punishment by the constables of the state, a person engaged in criminal sense gratification is similarly arrested by the Yamadutas, who bind him by the neck with a strong rope and cover his subtle body so that he may undergo severe punishment. So now we know, as when the soul leaves this body, this gross body, it has to be taken away by the Yamdutas. So the gross body is not there. So what do? They give him a yatana deha, a punishment, a body suitable for punishment. Because subtle body is made of mind, intelligence, false ego, and contaminated consciousness. How is anybody gonna beat it up? You cannot do anything to it. So the Yamdutas give him a punishment body suitable for punishment. And then they tie a strong rope around his neck. And these Yamdutas who come, there are three Yamdutas come. Three Yamdutas, why? Because it's mentioned in the story of Ajamil. Because we commit sinful activities by our body, mind, and words. So three Yamdutas come. So they grab him, and they're not very good looking, they're very ferocious, very strong personalities. They grab this person, and then they give him his yatna there, cover his, and tie a strong rope around his neck, and then they drag him. It's not like they're going to bring a car or something. A police car is going to come. No. They drag him on a burning hot sand all the way to the Yamloka. And that is 100,000 yojan or 99,000 yojan away from Earth. So they drag him. And just like many times when the cops arrest a criminal, so Yamraji is going to decide later on once they reach Yamlok. But on the way, many times, the cops, if they arrest somebody and they take him into the police station, they beat him up on the way also. That's their special right. So the Yamdutas also do that. They beat him up and they drag him. It's a hard sand. And he cries and he begs for, give me some water, and then they beat him up more. And they also have animals like dogs that they bark at him and they bite him. And this is the just a trailer of the punishment that he's going to receive. Every living entity is covered by a subtle and gross body. The subtle body is a covering of mind, ego, intelligence, and consciousness. It is said in the scriptures that the constables of Yamaraj cover the subtle body of the culprit and take him to the abode of Yamaraj to be punished in a way that he is able to tolerate. He does not die from this punishment, because if he died, then who would suffer the punishment? It is not the business of the constables of Yamaraj to put one to death. In fact, it is not possible to kill a living entity because factually he is eternal. That we know from Bhagavad Gita. The soul is eternal. He simply has to suffer the consequences of his activities of sense gratification. So they take him to Yamloka, and then the Yamraj calls Chitragut, and Chitragut has a whole data of all our activities, pious and sinful. And then Yamraji looks at the data and then he gives him a punishment. Okay, you go to this hell for these many years. Suppose he goes to the hell where he is going to be boiled in the oil. He will be put in the burning, boiling hot oil that is kept in a big pot. So suppose he is supposed to get punished for maybe 10 years. So he is given a body, yatna deha, that will not burn away in that oil. He will feel the punishment, but the body will not die. Just like if somebody takes me and puts this body in that burning oil, I'll die in maybe 1 minute, maybe less. But the criminals are given that body, that kind of body, that he does not die. He just gets punishment. And what they do, the Yamdutas over there in the hell or hellish planet, so it depends upon the severeness of sinful activity. Suppose he is, as I said, maybe he is to suffer for 10 years. So they take him in the morning, they boil him in the oil and make him suffer, and then they bring him out and leave him back at home. And the next morning again he goes in through that punishment. And there are, towards the end of 5th canto, Shukdev Goswami is explaining all these hellish planets. There are 28 hellish planets, different kinds. And that's where all the punishments are given. The process of punishment is explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So there's another type of punishment. Formerly, the king's men would take a criminal in a boat in the middle of the river. They would dunk him by grasping a bunch of his hair and thrusting him completely underwater. And then when he was almost suffocated, the king's constables would take him out of the water and allow him to breathe for some time. And then they would again dunk him in the water to suffocate. This sort of punishment is inflicted upon the forgotten soul by Yamaraj, as will be described in the following verses. So formerly, Prabhupada writing that king's men would take a criminal in a boat in the middle of the river and then they dunk his head inside the water, and then he cannot breathe and he would be suffering and grasping for breath, and before he would die they would take him out. And then he would say, oh, I'm so happy, I'm free. But they would dunk him again in the water. And this punishment is called waterboarding. Similar punishment is also given by US Special Forces to the terrorists. They don't take him in the middle of the river, but similar punishment is there, waterboarding. Of course, the US Constitution has made it illegal now, but they still do it. Text 21. Tayor nirbhin hridyas tarjanar jatave pathu pathikshva bher bhakshimana artho agham swam anusmaran. While carried by the constables of Yamaraj, he is overwhelmed and trembles in their hands. While passing on the road, he is bitten by dogs and he can remember the sinful activities of his life. He is thus terribly distressed. It appears from this verse that while passing from this planet to the planet of Yamaraj, the culprit arrested by Yamaraj's constables meet many dogs which bark and bite just to remind him of his criminal activities of sense gratification. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that one becomes almost blind and is bereft of all sense when he is infuriated by the desire for sense gratification. He forgets everything, calmness as the hridayana. One is bereft of all intelligence when he is too attached by sense gratification. And he forgets that he has to suffer the consequences also. The chance for recounting his activities of sense gratification is given by the dogs engaged by Yamaraj. While we live in the gross body, such activities of sense gratification are encouraged even by modern government regulations. In every state all over the world, such activities are encouraged by the government in the form of birth control. Women are supplied pills and they are allowed to go to a clinical lab to get assistance for abortions. This is going on as a result of sense gratification. Actually, sex life is meant for begetting a good child. But because people have no control over the senses, and there is no institution to train them to control the senses, the poor fellows fall victim to the criminal offenses of sense gratification, and they're punished after death as described in these pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So there are so many. The Prabhupada just explained one, the sex life, and then they go for abortion, and abortion is definitely big time sinful activity. Or just like if they drink liquor, if they go for gambling and meat eating is that's terrible sense gratification. Terrible punishment is there from that. And this is while he is only going to the Yamlok. Kshutrit parito arka davanallanile santapyamana pati taptavaluke krichren prishthe kashya chataditash chalati ashakto api nirashramodako. Okay. Under the scorching sun, the criminal has to pass through the roads of hot sand with forest fires on both sides. He is whipped on the back by the constables because of his inability to walk, and is afflicted by hunger and thirst. But unfortunately, there is no drinking water, no shelter, and no place for rest on the road. And this is a situation. The soul has died, the body has died, soul has left the body, and he has just seen his relatives now enjoying a feast after his passing away. And now he is suffering from that, first of all, emotionally, and now physically he is suffering. That's a terrible situation. Tatra tatra patanchranto murchita punaruttita patha papi yasa anitas tarasa yamasadanam. While passing on the road to the abode of Yamaraj, he falls down in fatigue and sometimes he becomes unconscious, but he is forced to rise again. In this way, he is very quickly brought to the presence of Yamaraj. Actually, it takes only a few moments to get to Yamlok, because they go with such a speed. But even then, it is so terrible for the person who is suffering. Yojananam sahasrani navtim navchadvanam tribhir muhurtair dvabhyam vanita prapnoti yatana. Thus he has to pass 99,000 yojans within 2 or 3 moments, and then he is at once engaged in the torturous punishment which is destined to suffer. 1 yojan is calculated to be 8 miles, and he has to pass along a road which is therefore as much as 792,000 miles. Such a long distance is passed over within a few moments only. The subtle body is covered by the constables so that the living entity can pass such a long distance quickly and at the same time tolerate the suffering. This covering, although material, is of such fine elements that material scientists cannot discover what the coverings are made of. To pass 792,000 miles within a few moments seems wonderful to the modern space travelers. They have so far traveled at a speed of 18,000 miles per hour. But here we see that a criminal passes 792,000 miles within a few seconds only. Although the process is not spiritual, it is only a material process. So in this, within 2 or 3 moments, he is given so much of punishment, and then more punishment later on he has to suffer. Adipnam swagatranam veshtitvol ulmukadibhi atmam mansadanam kvapi swakritam parto apiva. He is placed in the midst of burning pieces of wood, and his limbs are set on fire. In some cases, he is made to eat his own flesh or have it eaten by others. From this verse through the next 3 verses, the description of punishment will be narrated. The first description is that the criminal has to eat his own flesh, burning at fire or allow others like himself who are present there to eat. In the last great war, people in concentration camps sometimes ate their own stool. So there is no wonder that in the Yama Sadhan, the abode of Yamaraj, one who had a very enjoyable life, eating others' flesh, has to eat his own flesh. So this is for people who love to eat meat, just cannot give it up. Jivataschantra bhyodhara shvagridhare dharamasadane sarva vrishchika danshadhyar dashadbhishchatma vashasam. His entrails are pulled out by the hounds and vultures of hell, even though he is still alive to see it, and he is subjected to torments by serpents, scorpions, gnats, and other creatures that bite him. Krintanam chavayavasho gajatebhyo vidapanam patanam gireshrebhyo rodhanam chambo gartayo. Next, his limbs are lopped off and torn asunder by elephants. He is hurled down from hilltops, and he is also held captive, either in water or in a cave. Yas tamisra rauravadhyascha yatana bhumte narvo nariva mithas sangen nirmita. Men and women whose lives were built upon indulgence and illicit sex life are put into many kinds of miserable conditions in the hells known as Tamisra, Antha-Tamisra, and Raurav. Materialistic life is based on sex life. The existence of all the materialistic people who are undergoing severe tribulations in the struggle for existence is based on sex. Therefore, in the Vedic civilization, sex life is allowed only in a restricted way. It is for the married couple and only for begetting children. But when sex life is indulged in for sense gratification illegally and illicitly, both the man and the woman await severe punishment in this world or after death. In this world also, they are punished by virulent diseases like syphilis and gonorrhea. And in next life, as we see in this passage of Srimad Bhagavatam, they are put into different kinds of hellish conditions to suffer. In Bhagavad Gita, first chapter, illicit sex life is also very much condemned, and it is said that one who produces children by illicit sex life is sent to hell. It is confirmed here in the Bhagavatam that such offenders are put into hellish conditions of life in the Tamisra, Antha-Tamisra, and Raurav hell. So Lord Kapila gives some knowledge of the hellish planets. And of course, he is speaking to his mother. He didn't want to give too much details. So nevertheless, there are 28 types of hellish planets, and which, as I said, Shukdev Goswami will describe towards the end of 5th canto. But the one thing for sure, we cannot run away from punishment if we commit sinful activity. Whether we get punishment here or after death. And another thing, you see, this is also mercy of Krishna. That first of all, he doesn't give the punishment right away. He still gives us a chance to rectify our mistakes. And secondly, now if we go to heavenly planet, then the lifetime over there is 100 years, but compared to Earth, it could be 10,000 years. And the lifetime, and if we go down to the hellish planets, the lifetime there is 100 years, but in calculation from Earth, it could be 10 years or 5 years, or very little time. And this is also mercy of Krishna. He gives the punishment for little time, and he gives the pleasure for long time. The punishment is there, and over there it looks like 100 years, but it's not 100 years according to our calculations. So the point is, even he's our very loving, very kind Father. Even if we make mistakes, He doesn't like to see us suffering for too long. And that's why the other faiths, when they talk about eternal hell, that doesn't make sense. Because He is such a kind Father. How can He see His sons suffering in the hell eternally? It cannot be. It is not there. They suffer. We suffer. But then we get a chance to come back and start. After we die in hell, whenever the sentence is over, we again come back to Yam Loka, and then Yamraji looks at now whatever nice activities he had done, so let me give him birth on earth, or whether human life or animal life or whatever life, let him start again. So this is also the mercy of Krishna. Of course, the punishment is there, and if it sounds too severe, just to remind us, I mean, I'm not sure about you all. I'm pretty sure I have gone through hell many times. So many lifetimes I have been suffering and making mistakes and committing sins. So I'm pretty sure I have gone through hell. And but by Prabhupada's mercy, this life somehow being engaged in the service, chanting and serving Krishna and Krishna's devotees. So hopefully can continue with this devotion service. And today, it's Narsingh Chaturdashi here in America, but in India it's already next day. And today is actually the day of appearance of Radha Ramanji, Radha Raman Dev in Vrindavan. Wonderful story that there was the deity, Gopal Bhatt Goswami had some 12 Shaligram Shilas that he used to worship. And so some big Seth, rich man, had come to Vrindavan, and he had given donations to different Goswamis and different acharyas who had the deities of Radha Krishna or Krishna, or whatever deities they had. So he had given them donations, clothes and jewelry to put on the deities. And Gopal Bhatt Goswami was thinking, I don't have a deity, I only have Shaligram Shilas. How can, I mean, I also want to dress the deities, but I have only Shaligram Shila. So thinking like that, today, this morning, on the day after Narsingh Chaturdashi, he went to take bath in the Yamuna, and then he was thinking that I only have Shaligram Shila, but then he was thinking, just like Narsingh Dev yesterday, he appeared from a pillar, maybe Krishna can appear from my Shaligram Shila. What's so difficult for him? And when he came back after taking bath, he saw that one of his Shaligram Shila, which is Damodar Shila, it had turned into beautiful Radha Raman deity. So Radha Ramanji, he just appeared himself, he manifested himself from the Shaligram Shila. So Gopal Bhatt Goswami came back and he saw this beautiful deity and he was surprised, he was so happy, and he took the deity to all the Goswamis and Rup Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, they all saw the deity, they were very happy. See, first of all, the real devotees, they're not envious of other devotees. They're not envious that how come he got such a mercy that Radha Raman appeared from his Shaligram Shila, how come I don't have this kind of mercy? They're very happy when Krishna bestows his blessings on a devotee. And then the Goswamis, they were happy, and then they said, actually, when Krishna had unmanifested his pastimes and he had left, his grandson, Vajranath, was there, was given in charge of Mathura, Vrindavan areas. And Vajranath, along with No, not grandson, great grandson, along with the mother Uttara, because Uttara was the only one left who had personally seen Krishna when Vajranam was creating temples in Vrindavan or establishing deities. So Vajranam as Mother Uttara, what did Krishna look like? Because she was the only one who had seen Krishna. So the sculptors were brought in, and Mother Uttara was describing, and so she described the lotus feet of Krishna, and the sculptor made the deity of Madan Mohanji, and it is said the lotus feet of Madan Mohanji resembles exactly the lotus feet of Krishna. And then because she was old, so they were thinking we don't have much time left. Then she described the waist of Krishna. And the sculptor was making the deities and the waist of Radha Govindji. Now, some places say Radha Gopinathji, some places Radha Govindji. The deities are in Jaipur right now. So the waist looks like that, and then she described the face. So some places say the face of Govind Devji looks like Krishna's, exactly like Krishna. But when the Acharyas and the Goswamis saw Radha Raman deity, they say the whole deity looks exactly like Krishna. The Krishna that we have seen, his lotus feet are of Madan Mohan, his middle part is of, depending whichever, Gopinathji or Govind Devji, and his face, lotus face, is Govind Devji, Gopinathji. And this is the deity. If you look closely on internet, you can search the pictures of Radha Ramanji. You can see a couple of teeth also he shows. Little teeth are shown, especially when he's happy and when he's smiling. Sometimes he closes his lips. And sometimes he opens and he shows two little teeth in there. He's very happy. And the part of Shaligram Shila is still in the back, towards the back of the deity. So telling that it's not like somebody swapped the deity with the Shaligram Shila. The Shila is still there and the deity is in the front. So beautiful, beautiful deity. You can take darshan on the internet, and whenever the lockdown is over, go to the Vrindavan and take darshan of Radha. Anyway, beautiful day today, wonderful day. So we'll stop here, see if anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam.
Dhanapranam.
Prabhuji, these verses scared us, that's the least we can say. Thankfully, in fact, Prabhuji, 4 years back, I was introduced to your class, and I think that was the time when I left all this nonsense. But is there a rough estimate of what kind of punishment awaits for me, Prabhuji? Because before that, all this while, in fact, I was doing let me be very candid. 4 years back, I was fortunate. I was introduced to your class by Gopal Prabhu.
Well, that's why I had to end the class with Radharaman Devi. So, Madhuram Swampe, it is said. But Prabhupada's mercy introduced to chanting and all these activities. So no problem.
But thanks to Prabhupada and thanks to Prabhuji, at least our eyes are opening now, and chances are will kind of help others as well to come on the right path.
Yeah.
But is the punishment reduced, Prabhuji, when people leave it, kind of give up all this nonsense?
Yeah, that can also happen. It's just like if a criminal has done some crime, but when he goes to the court and he admits, yes, I'm guilty, then the punishment will be less. If he says, no, I'm not guilty, but if he's proven guilty, then the punishment is definitely different. So, so yeah, I'll admit I'm guilty. I made a mistake, and now I'm not making it any again. So yes, but chanting is so powerful. When Krishna says, "Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam praja," aham tvam sarva papebhyo. Sarva papebhyo, he says. Mokshishyami mashacha. Just surrender. I'll absolve you of all the sins. So don't worry about sins and the punishment. We have to worry about becoming Krishna conscious. That's all.
True, Prabhuji. And I think these pages should be advertised everywhere so people get to know. But there are many people in ignorance who don't even
They
know
will
what.
not believe it. No, they will not believe it. This is where the preaching comes in. We have to preach. We have to preach to help others, to save others.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I'm thinking that what face I have to show to Krishna.
Say again.
I'm just thinking that what face I have to show to Krishna. मैं तो मतलब literally हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना मुंह दिखाने के लायक ही नहीं है हम लोग को. We have done so मतलब इतना कुछ हम लोग गलत करते रहते हैं 24 hours and not even completely surrender to Krishna. So where will we give waive off these punishments?
But you're chanting.
हाँ प्रभु जी वो तो हमको ही पता है ना हम क्या चैंट कर रहे हैं भगवान जाने दिमाग तो कहीं और ही रहता है.
This chanting is so powerful. It is said again in the scriptures only. If we chant just one name of Krishna properly, that can remove the number of sins that we can't even think of committing. Forget about what we have committed. That's also true.
Properly भी कहाँ ना, this is what is the catch is there ना, the properly भी तो नहीं हो रहा ना, like I'm doing it, like I'm not talking about others, but I'm doing it, but I know it's not proper. अभी भी ढंग से नहीं, मतलब दिमाग ही नहीं लग पाता. Sometimes it's here, sometimes there. So even if we are not completely surrender, हमने ना हम लोग को कुछ करने से गलत चीजें खत्म हो रही हैं, ना surrender है properly, where will we go? बहुत ही हमारा तो पता नहीं क्या होने वाला है.
कोई लगे रहो सब ठीक हो. Prabhupada is there. That's our hope against hope.
I know.
मुझे तो लग रहा माता जी मैं डिप्रेशन में आ जाऊंगा अब.
आप आ जाओगे, मैं तो शुरू ही हो गया.
That's why I had to tell the story of Radha Ramanji. So don't think of Nark, think of Radha Ramanji.
प्रभु जी सेम थिंग इज गरुड़ पुराण में भी है, वहां भी सुनते हैं किसी की डेथ हो जाती है, क्रिया में भी पंडित लोग कुछ पार्ट्स बताते रहते हैं, उस मोमेंट के लिए ठीक है, एंड देन अगेन.
But people still forget, yes, as soon as they.
यही तो सब भूलना.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी.
हरे कृष्ण.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु. प्रभु जी
Yes.
आपने आज का क्लास तो जो दिया, मतलब वो तो है, थोड़ा सा मन में घबराहट आ गया है, बट मैं यही सोच रही हूँ कि कल परसों आपने बताया था ना कि गणेश जी भी नरसिंह देव के पैर पकड़ के सारा एनर्जी लेते हैं. मैं तो यही बोल रही हूँ, हम आपके पैर को पकड़ रहे हैं, आप ही हमें इस भवसागर से निकालिए. हमें तो ना पता कुछ भी. हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते. मैंने तो ये जान लिया, मैं तो कुछ नहीं कर सकती.
प्रभुपाद के पैर पकड़ो, और आप तो वैसे जगन्नाथपुरी के जगन्नाथ जी के धाम के हो. आपको
प्रभु जी कुछ नहीं होने वाला, मैं तो ये जान चुकी हूँ.
जगन्नाथ जी के धाम के
आप ही करिए.
Just imagine your good fortune.
प्रभु जी आपका और डिवोटी का आशीर्वाद रहेगा तभी कुछ हो पाएगा, वरना कुछ नहीं होने वाला। मैंने तो ये अभी कुछ टाइम पे रियलाइज कर लिया है कि कुछ बस की नहीं है हमारी, हम बस ऐसे ही सोचते रहते हैं कि ये हमने कर लिया, वो हमने कर लिया, बट कुछ नहीं। फिर वो पीछे से जब सोचते हैं ना, फिर कृष्णा एक धक्का देते हैं कि देख ले तू कहाँ पे है। तो
We all are in the same boat, Mata. No difference. और जो दिल्ली वाले हैं, they're also very fortunate because Delhi was Indraprasth. It's a place of Pandavas, and Krishna came there so many times. So Krishna's lotus feet have been there to Delhi. So don't worry. Prabhupada's mercy is with everybody, all of us. We just have to take it seriously. That's all. Nothing more. Okay, so we'll stop here. You all have a wonderful and safe day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.